Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to Tapas Project SHAALA. This is Preeti Vikram, your host for the evening. Very, very excited to be here on day 2 of our virtual conference. And it gives me great pleasure in welcoming our guest for today, who's going to be talking about student-centric space design, which enhances learning, cognition, and well-being. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Arunabh Singh. Hi, Arnab.
Hello.
For all the people who are viewing, Arunabh is the director at Nehru World School, and he is the co-founder of this beautiful space called Healthy Planet Schools, and this is in Noida. So we will be talking a lot about the kind of space that he has created. But just to tell you a little bit about Arunabh and his school that we visited a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, and we haven't stopped talking about it since then to everybody that we meet. So, Arunabh, the power of your storytelling and the kind of space that you created is going to travel far and wide. So, we're really excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Preeti.
I think the first question, and it's great to start at the beginning, why did you think of changing the way that spaces were designed for schools, and what was the whole motivation behind the design process?
Okay, that's 2 years of thought attempting to summarize in a few sentences. Uh, we were trying to solve everything that we'd ever moaned about, everything that we felt was not right about learning spaces, and perhaps our sensitivity towards that increased post becoming parents. So we're very joint family. My elder brother and I, we stay together. We're 3 generations staying together in this one house with one kitchen. So we got 4 kids, and across the early years of these 4 kids, we attempted different ways of solving early years education and experiences for them. And every time we tried a new thing, we knew how we would have wanted it better. So years were spent thinking if we could ever do this one day, then we were going to get it right. And then this project came about, and we realized that we had an opportunity of solving it. So a lot of time had been spent in scrapbooking everything that we wanted from a early year space, and everything we did not want. So I think that became the the mood board of what got created eventually. And uh, we have a very sincere belief that while adults in a child's life are the first teachers, the parents, the teachers, all adults around the child, caregivers, and the peer group becomes the second big teacher. Children, or people my age that I'm growing around with, I learned so much from them. And the third big teacher is the environment in which all of this is taking shape. And I believe Tapas probably is a similar example of this acute realization that environment is super important in that equation as well. So
That's
all of that put together contributed to why we became who we became.
super. You spoke a little bit about the mood board. Can you describe it to the people who are watching today? What
Sorry, yeah,
material the mood board? You spoke
yeah.
about the mood board. Can you
Yeah.
describe the mood board of how Healthy Planet looks and what materials are used?
So, Healthy Planet Early Years Campus in Noida is elemental. It is super elemental. And one sacrosanct belief we had was anything that looks like something should be that thing. So we would not create a false pretense or a false promise in anything. So it is, if something looks like concrete, it is. If something looks like brick, it is. We've used terrazzo for floors. It's just so much more environmentally conscious flooring. There's a lot of wood. There's a lot of sunlight. There is no paint. There is no paint on the entire campus. There is no Sanmaika. There are hardly any plastics. Plastics only come in when we cannot do without them.
Sure.
And we've also really gone down on using of uh, screens for our children. The entire campus for 180 kids shares one screen, and that also is only used when we're doing teacher enablement workshops. So hardly ever are children in front of screens on that campus, and we're seeing. So we are still in our first year of operations, and we're seeing how that goes. But so far, making learning tactile and elemental were the two basic premises of our mood board.
And that's fantastic to hear. And like you mentioned, when we started out our journey of having to think about our campus as well, we asked learners what do they want their ideal campus to look like. And out of 225 students who responded to this survey, almost 85% of them said that they wanted something to do with nature. They wanted more proximity to nature. And so you got that right, so right, that it has to be elemental, right? And just the touch and feel of everything that's natural is
Uh,
so much more closer to a child than what any man-made substance can do.
Oh, absolutely. So, small examples like this main totem pole of the school. Every time we spot a new creature on the campus, we try and get a photograph, and then it comes on the totem pole, and the big title is "We share our space with." So there are lots of creatures on the totem pole now. There is also this bug hotel. So every time a little kid would find a bug, any kind of bug, they would try and escort the bug to the bug hotel. Uh, there is a butterfly garden, there is a treasure garden. So we've tried to really use environment in its true sense. We're very fortunate. A couple of months back, a bird created a nest, and the nest was really low, about 2.5 feet from the ground, and there were four eggs in it. And we found that nest, and then for the next 15 days, the kids would go and watch what's happening in the nest today. And I believe that would have become such a permanent memory for
Absolutely.
these young ones as they saw one egg hatch and the second egg hatch and the four of them, and then eventually for them to become little birds and fly away. So there is a lot that we can learn from nature only if we allow nature to teach us.
And I do remember seeing this, what you mentioned when we visited, and I have a picture of what we share the space with, right? Like all
Uh,
the creatures that we share. And so that's something I have taken back and implemented at Tapas. So
oh, lovely.
it's a lovely gesture. It allows the learner to know that they are not, this space doesn't belong to one creature or one type of person, right? So, and I think that's a beautiful way of showing that sense of inclusivity in your space.
Interesting you say this. It doesn't belong to one person. So, in our entire campus, this campus and the Ghaziabad campus as well, till KG, you don't own anything. The classroom owns everything, and you share amongst friends. So, stationery is shared, all resources are shared. So, there was this one kid who joined school and asked, whose is this? And the child said, it was told, this is classroom, this is classroom. So, every time he would point to something, he was told, this is classrooms. Day two, he asked, whose classroom?
Yeah.
Because his understanding was that everything belongs to one person.
Yeah.
So, and how nothing belongs to one person and everything belongs to the community is such an
Right.
integral, important learning that I believe, the more we harness this thought and the more we press upon it, the better it is for the society at large.
Absolutely. While we do, and I would like to unravel and unpack the kind of space that you've created slowly and gradually through this conversation, I think now I'd like to understand, how do you think this intentionality of designing will influence student engagement or maybe something like cognitive development? Do you think it has impact on
Oh, it has
all of
it has
this?
definite impact, and on this journey, we were very fortunate that we had Pankaj and Christine leading our design process for us. Pankaj went to Yale, Christine went to Harvard for their architecture, and then they've been practicing in India for some time now, and they've done some very interesting education design spaces around the world. For example, things we were looking at was that the focal point of this building is 2 feet from the ground. because that's where the user of the space is looking at this or experiencing this campus from. The five
Right.
feet 5 inch adult needs to be accommodated, but the space is not for that person. The space is for the 2 feeter. Uh, so how are we allowing this child to explore and experience this space? Uh, we also wanted to create cocoons that would make you feel safer and at peace while you're on the campus. There is enough research that tells us that when your brain is at peace and you're feeling safe, is when you would have time or would be able to accommodate any new learning. Till that time, you're only going to try and ensure safety. So, emotional safety and physical safety. Can the entire environment allow for that to happen? So while we've used a lot of natural light, but one simple thing, and a lot of schools can do it, we've done is that whenever there's a power outage, 1/3 of the lights of the room stay on.
Okay.
So never would a 2-year-old get startled that what happened here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that is needed is just a big UPS and these connections, which it is not difficult to do, but having the sensitivity to do it
Right.
is sometimes found lacking.
Absolutely. And what you mentioned, I think when you think of it, most schools are following Maslow's hierarchy of needs as something of a theory that they're teaching, but you've actually implemented it at the Healthy Planet. It's so interesting that we've considered safety and the perspective of the 2-year-old and the two-footer. That's what you mentioned.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I remember that you have two railings that go up and down the stairs.
yeah.
This is
So
from.
yeah, there's one for the little child, and the other is the usual height for the adult. And we were theorizing that we needed these two because again, the 2 foot human is more comfortable holding it lower. And there was this mom with a 1 year, 11-month-old daughter. The daughter saw the staircase. She was holding on to her mother's finger. She looks at the staircase, lets go of the mother's finger, holds on to the lower banister, and starts to climb up. The mother, as time, takes out her phone and clicks. And I was like, what did I miss? What happened here? And she says, well, this is the first time my daughter let go of my finger rather than clutching onto it tighter when she saw a staircase. And in that moment, I knew that this theory and this imagination that we are going to make this student agency more pronounced at this level itself, it had been worthwhile. Like every time I tell this story, I get goosebumps
Yeah.
as I imagine myself in that moment.
It's a beautiful story. And going back to the student agency that you just mentioned, I know that there is a story behind the signage as well at Healthy Planet. So I
Yeah.
think it also goes with the same student agency, the way the color coding as well as the kind of icons that you have given.
Yeah. So, it was very difficult putting yourself in a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old shoes. There are things that as adults we usually think children love, and then there are things that children love.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is a difference. So, what my brain believes is not always true.
Yeah.
So, that is when you should go back and lean on research. And there is a lot of empirical research that is available if you go finding it. This was happening in 2019, 20, and you still has to scavenge the internet, which is now easier thanks to the chat GPTs of the world. So
Yeah.
getting access to high quality research has now become easier, and we should make use of that tech. Um, Going back to that conversation about signage that we found, Luciana, she works out of Brussels, lovely human, super passionate about signages, only does signages. And when she was doing this for us, she was also doing the European Parliament, and we knew that we'd found somebody who really loved getting the signage right. And in those conversations, this got pronounced that if a 3-year-old has to navigate this building, then how can we make this simpler? What fonts will get used that are most easy to understand, or how we are not going to make our floors in alphanumeric. Often it is B for basement, G for ground, and then one and two. Can we make this just numerical? And even after making them numerical, can we have signages of one floor in one color? And all those colors need to be pleasing to the eye as well. And little infographics on them um, if they can appeal to kids, and we didn't really have that deep a thought on it, but Luciana did. So on that, on the signages, there are two different signs for toilets. So there's signs for adult toilets and there are signs for kid toilets. No adult has ever pointed out to those two signs, but there was a kid who did point out and say, these are toilets for babies and these are toilets for adults,
Yeah.
just because how they looked. So
Yeah.
attention to detail. I think you can never have too much of detail thinking, but the more you can think and research and be open to this idea that I do not know everything. The last human who knew everything died a very, very long time ago,
For sure.
and we can learn from other people.
Yeah, yeah. And something that you mentioned just right at the beginning of this answer, you said, what we think as adults is right for children is sometimes so wrong from what they actually need.
Right.
I'm drawn back to many of the preschools who use a lot of color, and then reflecting on the kind of subtle signages that you just spoke of. I just wonder why adults think that kids like cartoon characters and so much color, and it's such a misguided concept.
But you see, they are being misguided by the fact that children do like it for a short span,
Yes.
right? And then they get overwhelmed with it.
Yes.
So while it is still acceptable, not ideal, but still acceptable in a 3-minute cartoon strip, but to put a child inside that cartoon for 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours of their day,
Yeah.
that is blasphemy.
Yeah, the
That
kind of
is absolute blasphemy.
overstimulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like to adults who are listening to this, when you go to an amusement park, you are super excited
Yeah.
and you see all of these bright colors, you see bright lights. But remember that every time you get out of that amusement park, you are drained.
Yeah.
Your brain is like, I've had enough. So
Yeah.
that's what is happening to a kid's brain when you are, overstimulating it.
Absolutely.
So if you were planning to create bright color environments, think twice.
Yes.
I
And
love how tapas has been done and how you use colors that are naturally occurring in nature.
yeah.
Like all the colors, I feel, maybe that would have been your mood board of what are colors occurring in nature and how we can use them on the tapas campus because they're just naturally pleasing to the eye.
Right, and I think similar to what we found at Healthy Planet, we also have exposed concrete, exposed bricks. It's all natural, it's all elemental, and it's what you see is what you get. There is no other layer there that's covering that up. So that's right. Um, a slightly more, in terms of the design, when you consider building this school, uh, did you keep in mind that it has to be student centric? That the
Oh,
learning that happens in the classroom has to be student centric.
oh, absolutely. Every learning space needs to be designed keeping the student at the center and how this child is going to navigate the space. Or especially for an early years campus, this is the first time that the child is leaving home for that long and coming to a space which is not his, at least not at the start. Eventually, the child owns that space, and you, the adult, are the outsider to that space. So, we'd kept in mind things like, you domesticate the classroom.
Okay.
You make it, you bring in things that a child might be seeing at home into that classroom. And so there are kitchen cabinets, there are wardrobes, there are washing machines, and they're all getting integrated in the pedagogy and the delivery of the curriculum that we are working on. So they're sized these things inside their classroom, and they're super tactile. So they get busy doing it. And there was this one father. One day, the child, after the class had finished, took the father to the cafe where he had his cup of tea. Then the child says, "Well, we need to go back to my class, and I will make you a cup of tea in my class." So he sat there, and this little lady then served tea from her class tea set. And he had to drink maybe those, 50 cups of tea that she was serving him. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so allowing them to feel that comfortable in the space. We've also attempted to stay super away from boxes. So
Okay.
there is no rectilinear room on this campus.
Okay.
This is the first such campus that we've done, and we're seeing how this would impact learning. But what that has allowed is it has allowed us to create nooks, little nooks, and we are seeing children really try and get into those little nooks and get something going. It becomes their own little space, and they find comfort in it. Maybe it's coming from the womb, it is coming from a cocoon. Um, we also attempted to slow down the corridors. So at student height in corridors, we've given them a lot of things to get busy with. And we're seeing that working very well. So, but what it does mean is when you need to make them move 15 meters, it is not going to be 15 meters of one straight line. They're going to get stopped and start interacting with these things that are in the corridor. But then who's in a hurry anyways?
That's true. And this was the nooks that you spoke about. This was one of the nooks where we sat down to have our coffee, where you had
Absolutely.
created this cozy little space to sit down.
Yeah.
And I loved
Yeah.
that because, it's so informal. A child is able to move around and, create their own space. And yeah, who's in a hurry? We can walk, take all the time that we need on the corridors. That's fabulous. Um, so, how do you balance between having a little bit of structure and then having this kind of a flexibility? Um, how much openness is there in the kind of pedagogy that you have, which matches the kind of structure that you have and the building that you have?
Right. So in every learning space, we're calling them learning spaces and not classrooms. So we got 10 learning spaces on that campus, and every learning space has been made for 18 children at max, with
Okay.
three teachers in the classroom or
Okay.
three teachers in that learning space. And in that learning space, there are five learning centers set up at any given point in time. They keep changing. What is the learning that these learning centers are going to give us? But out of those five, three learning centers would be manned or be supervised by a teacher,
Okay.
and two would be choice.
Okay.
And children would move from one learning center to the other in small groups,
Okay.
sometimes with their own choice of what they want to do in that moment. But there would be other times when the teacher would say, okay, let's start here, and then I will give you a choice. Or you start with choice, and then you come back and work with me for some time. So the attempt is to allow them to experience love for learning and then treasure it.
Right.
So they should not want to leave school because they're having so much joy in their learning process. And maybe at the start, they're not even figuring out that we had a purpose behind what we were doing with them.
Right. And I know that you've also intentionally designed so that parents don't feel like leaving your school as well. I saw
Yes.
that there were a lot of parents like, hanging around and wanting to spend more time.
So, you see, traditionally, schools take out the parent and box them to only interact with the school on the parent teacher day.
Right.
And then we try and solve the equation with only partial elements of the equation.
Okay.
So on this campus, the attempt was let us complete this equation and see if we can create a commune of people who are together interested in development of all of these children and safety of all children. So curating that parent body was an important task. And we knew that it could only be done with patience. So we did not advertise at all. We wanted it to become a word of mouth and similar thought wise people speaking in their communities and saying, let's do this. What that has led to is that the parent community in itself is such an integral part. There are times when they're volunteering, working alongside teachers. a couple of months back, they did a dance musical. Uh, they uh, they got together. I think the book that they worked on was The Giraffe Who Couldn't Dance,
Okay.
and the entire musical was done by the parents. They did their own costumes, and students were in attendance. Uh, and they also have a co-working space on this campus. The
Okay.
idea of the co-working space had come from a focus group discussion that we'd been having. So we did a lot of focus group discussions with young parents trying to understand their need. And one hypothesis had been that the working mother would want to start child's journey outside home the fastest. Uh, but we were in for a surprise when we realized that a stay-at-home mother had been a stay-at-home mother because she did not have a support system with a child. So if you could give us support system to the child, you are also contributing towards women empowerment. And they would say, well, if you're creating this, then I would want in earlier. Once we did it, we were in for even more surprise because in our brain we were imagining that the mothers will show off with kids. But about 40% of our co-working space is used by fathers.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So, so what we had sort of missed in our thought process was that between the two parents, the one whose work can be done remotely is going to take responsibility of the kid
Right.
to take the child to school and then bring the child back. So that's why about 40% of them are men who are working from this campus. You need to be a parent of the school to be able to work from the school.
Okay. Okay. Super. I have a few pictures I'd like to put up on the screen. Maybe you can
Sure,
tell us a few stories around those
sure,
pictures.
sure. All right, that's a classroom or a learning space, and you can see different learning centers. The ones I was talking to you about. You can see that the table with the chairs right in the front of the image, and then so that's one learning space, and then you can see the rug, and there are other things kept there. That's another learning space. Um, I can see they've made a boat. Seems like they were doing something with boats, and
Maybe a rocket ship
bear with me.
as well. Maybe a rocket ship in the middle. Yeah. Looks so
There is a
interesting.
rocket ship in the middle. There is
Yeah.
a rocket ship in the middle. They might have been doing transportation as a theme. And yeah, I can see some rockets on the pin boards right at the back as well.
Yes.
Uh, so so there is one learning center right at the back, and actually the pin board that you see right behind, that's a toilet for this classroom. So every classroom gets an ensuite toilet and two wash basins. Teachers love these wash basins
Oh,
more
yes.
than. So it's made the movement of children around so much simpler. You're only able to see about half the classroom in this photograph, but in that
Right.
half the classroom, you can see a kitchen and you can see a vegetable cart and you can see a lot of student work. Uh, be acutely aware that you're not seeing any teacher-led artwork.
This is all children's work.
It is their space and they're 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 creating it as it develops. So we change our theme every 45 to 50 days, so it starts all over again. My favorite theme is space explorers, and space explorer starts with students coming to school and seeing a UFO has crash landed in the school, and they make sense of it, and the 2-year-old is making different sense of it. A 3-year-old has different words, and a 4-year-old, of course, has different words. Fortunately, nobody's asked us yet how has this UFO crash landed in the atrium in the middle while the roof is not torn.
Yeah.
that that's going to be difficult to explain. So and then
Yeah.
they go about their learning.
Superb. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. So this is a skylight. There are many skylights that we have on our campus, and these skylights allow for sun to reach inside the classrooms. And as you can imagine, when the sun is right on top of the skylight, it would be creating a circular light at the floor of this classroom. And now, further, allow yourself to imagine children with a chalk are tracing the circle and then getting busy doing something and coming back half an hour later only to realize that the light has moved and the circle has stayed behind.
Hmm. Yeah. That's
And
beautiful.
because you're not telling them what has happened and how there is sun and then there is revolution and rotation and all of that, their brain is getting to work in trying to understand what has happened. and
Yes.
uh, and the very creative Amrisha ma'am is getting these kids. I think this must be monsoons because there are droplets of water, and seems like they're creating objects out of droplets of water that are on top of that skylight.
Yeah.
That's the front facade of the building. It's a lot more green now. This was probably when we were 6 months in. Now our green cover is so much more. And all of this area that you see, we're calling that the butterfly garden. This is
Oh,
also where the bug hotel is. We've seen 8 different colors of butterflies,
wow. Okay.
which is 8 times more than the color of butterflies I've seen at home or anywhere else. Because in this urban jungle that we live in,
Yeah.
there are no butterflies. There are no ladybugs. Uh, None of that is to be found anymore. So for some children, this is the first time they're actually seeing a real butterfly around them. We've been able to take photographs of 5 of these. 3 of them eluded us. Hopefully, this season they'll come back. And and again, very simply put, the butterfly garden came about when the horticulturist asked us, "What plants do you want here?" And we just said, "Well, plants that would attract butterflies." And he said, "Oh, then we can put a lot of them because you know that different butterflies sit on different plants, don't you?"
Yeah.
I
Do
didn't know
they?
it till that day. I didn't know
Okay.
this till that day.
They have
And
preferences.
they have preferences, so different color butterflies sit on different plants.
Okay.
So that's how. So all of the plants that are being put there are pollinators, and as a result, we are seeing different sort of butterflies.
When everybody's talking about the air quality index of Delhi and Noida, and here you are
Yeah,
creating this whole microcosm of beautiful, ecologically safe space for children. It's just amazing.
yeah. Right. Well, that's the co-working space, and uh, you see my better half Sonal in the photograph. I
Uh-huh.
had asked her to pose, pose how parents sit in this space and utilize the space. So she's posing for us there, and behind her is this book rack that parents have been contributing to.
Okay.
So we have a big library in the school, and then we have a library for the parents, and the parents just pick and take books from here and drop books back, and nobody needs to get them issued. You remember I had spoken to you about the commune that is getting built.
Yes.
So we'd only put, I think, like 15, 20 books to get this place started, and the books here have just been growing, which is also a testament to the community that is getting together.
Beautiful.
Okay, so this is not a preschooler, but this little girl is a member of the library community. So on this campus, there is also a fully functional library, and there is this, can I say, fantastic early literacy and reading program that we run. We're really serious about reading and reading to all ages. So the library is open for 0 years of age to about 12 years of age. And there are 180 children who subscribe to this library. So they go to other schools, but once the school finishes, they come into the library space. And on different dates, the atrium in the middle um, becomes different things. So on this day, they might have been doing a read aloud of a book around construction, and all of this stuff would have been present for children to do whatever they want to do. So notice that she's used the base is two cushions or blocks to
Options.
sit on.
Yeah.
We were sitting on one of these when you came to our campus,
I remember.
and then she's created whatever she thinks she's created here, and this actually grew much bigger by the time she was done with it. And her grandfather joined in, and her little brother joined in, and once she was ready to go, then she put all of it back, and yeah, so this is how the space lends itself to very flexible learning spaces.
I have to say, Arnab, we started out with having about 10, 12 questions to ask you, but just the stories about the space is so powerful. I think they're just so much better that we continue this way. And there's the evidence of everything that I wanted to ask you is in these pictures and the stories that you're telling. So I
Sure,
think we'll just continue this way. We'll ignore the
sure,
questions.
sure. Oh, that's the atrium. So our entire campus centers around it. And a little while back, I was talking to you about circles of light. So you
Yes.
see many circles of light in the middle of this canvas, and
Mm.
uh, these kids again, it's a class spilling out into this space. And this entire campus has been imagined as if the big broad pillar that you see in the middle, which is a 15 people lift behind it,
Yeah.
that's the trunk of a banyan tree, and then on top of this is the canopy, and this space in the middle is a brick playground space for our children to experience different things in. We are doing the Festival of Learning in this atrium on 7th of March, where educators from around the country are coming in to co-create more learning in the earlier space. So this becomes the central nervous system of the entire campus. What you also see is these railings, and at least towards the right, you can see that they are slats, thin slats, all held individually. Uh, you remember I had spoken to you about the two-fit child who is
Yes.
experiencing this and who the building is made for.
Mm-hmm.
So that railing design was done keeping in mind that child, because
Okay.
his head is still not coming on top of the railing. So if you would have made the railing opaque, then you would have killed the entire experience for this kid. But
Right.
because of the space in the middle of them, so there is enough space for them to take their hand out, but not enough for them to take their foot out.
Okay.
And
That's, yeah.
yeah, this just allows them to experience this space. This
I
my
think also,
favorite place of the campus.
yeah, and I think it's very striking. It's very beautiful, and it kind of anchors the whole space, like you said, the trunk of the tree. When we visited, I remember the circular light, the one that you referred to, was on the pillar, on this
Yes.
big pillar. So
It's
I
a
think
it's a
depending on the campus.
canvas. It's a canvas. It keeps it's organic. It keeps moving through the day, and we play a little light instrumental music. Different days are for different instruments. We are hoping that eventually children would be able to tell which day it is based on which musical instrument is playing today.
Oh, okay.
While we are still on this image, I want to also point you towards these ducts that you might be able to see, circular ducts that run all around the campus. You usually see these ducts for air conditioning in buildings. But in our campus, they're not for air conditioning. They're for treated fresh air.
Okay.
So we are pre-filtering 100% of the air that's coming into the campus,
Wow.
and then continuously pushing air inside our space at 100 CFM load. So what that is doing is A, this is the cleanest air to breathe in all of Delhi and NCR. And B, this is also the healthiest air to breathe because the children are not breathing in and breathing out the same air through the day because you're injecting fresh air in. So,
Right.
I mean, theoretically, I can say this is now healthier, and thus children would fall ill lesser because they're not
Right.
going to get free gifts of viruses, at least not
Yeah.
as much as they would have had if they were breathing the same air. So
Absolutely.
that's how we are managing the air quality. And another thing that we've been able to achieve in terms of environment consciousness, this entire building, all the brick is in a rat trap bond structure, which has used one third less bricks, but also created these spaces within the walls, which
Okay.
are making this campus 12 degrees cooler in the summer than outside.
Wow. Okay.
And in the winters, the opposite of that happens. So we don't need to switch on heating. It's just warmer inside because we hold on to more heat inside. So, as a result, our air conditioning load and our heating load, our electricity consumption is a lot lesser than would have been had it been anything else.
I think this is similar to what we have at Tapas as well, because we have the rammed earth bricks. What earth we excavated while constructing, we've used that to partially construct the space, and the others are also rammed earth bricks. So
Oh,
it keeps us insulated in summer and from the heat outside, and keeps the heat inside during
right.
winter. And
Oh,
I agree, it's a beautiful way of ensuring lesser usage of electricity.
oh. Oh, you've come to the treasure garden. This
Yeah.
treasure garden is it's got a pirate ship and it's got a lot of sand, and children just don't want to leave it. 2-year-olds to 12-year-olds, they can spend hours playing in this, and uh, we didn't realize how captivating this space is going to be. So it's very tactile. You get to do a lot of gross motor and fine motor work, but then you get to do a lot of creative work, and because there is no one way of using this space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, I think it seems like they're having some sort of a party in sitting. Uh, Maybe the child inside the boat is serving the child outside,
Yeah.
and at the back you see there's this water play feature, the flat table sort of thing that you see there.
Yes.
So you press on to a tap, and water comes. So you can fill that entire tray and then have it to, for boating, for your little boats or anything that can float. Or you could use water to make this sand more playable, and you start to make things from it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite spaces as well. All right. Okay. So uh, we are on the other side of the butterfly garden here, and these children have been picking twigs and other things of fallen plants, and I believe they plan to do some creative work. It's uh, how nature can be used to showcase their creativity. So on transparent slides, they're putting their stuff together. Uh, and they would also a lot of times do this and put this around the bug hotel. Bugs
Okay.
really love stuff like this.
Yeah.
So there are times when they would pick stuff, put it there as this is where bugs would sleep in, and then other times they would go there and this is what bugs will eat today.
Yeah. I think we did something so similar in terms of an art exploration. Looked at materials from nature that we could create our canvases with. So this is something we've done, and it's so beautiful that we're able to afford these things.
Yeah. Oh, now you've come to the bug hotel.
Okay.
The bug hotel getting it's a lot bigger now. The bug hotel. This is perhaps towards the start of it getting done. Yeah.
Okay, that kind of brings me to the end of all the pictures, and I'm a little sad that the pictures are done. They were just so beautiful. But I think we're also close to completing our conversation, and I wanted to share some of the comments that we've been getting so far. Um, Vibha says that
Yeah.
we're going back to our roots.
Lovely.
Here's another comment. So Arnab, I think we're almost at the end of our time for today. We don't have more. This was so beautiful chatting with you. We hope that we get a lot of chances to visit your campus. What was supposed to be a talk about space design, I think became all about highlighting the beautiful campus that you have, which in itself is a whole session on space design. So thank you so much for taking this time.
No, it's been a delight, and people who are tuned in and people who would see this video later on, and if they're still with us 45 minutes into the conversation, we welcome you to our little campus here in Noida, and we would wholeheartedly share with you all the things we've got right, but more importantly, things we didn't, so you can start from the end of our learning curve and perhaps create something which is even more empowering for children. For it takes one school at a time to create the world that we live in, and all
Absolutely.
of our effort is equally important.
Absolutely. And since we are out of time, any questions that you may have for Arnab, please leave it in the comments. We'll make sure that he gets it. and his answers, we will reach them back to you. So please do leave them in the comments, and we will get back to you. So Arnab, it was a pleasure once again revisiting your campus through these pictures and through the stories that you tell. Thank you so much for being with us, and hope to meet you soon at your campus.
Likewise, I'm eagerly awaiting my visit to Tapas, and best
Yes,
wishes for everything that you're doing there. Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Take
Cheers.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.